Hi, bonjour, 안녕하세요. I really wish that the lens was much clearer because this is so, to me, it's not very clear. And as you know, my phone got stolen, so it kind of sucks. But yeah, I just stomped on sort of like a doormat. But hello, can you guys hear me? Okay, good. So basically, growing up, I grew up with a single mother, and she was like very headstrong and very independent, and was a single mother, and she did have to ask people for help at times, for rent or whatever it is. She had to ask her kids for help. She had to ask me for money. And but I think that every time she felt very ashamed of asking for help, and she thought it was a bad thing. And so growing up, I had it all together. I was emotionally sane, I was always smiling, I was a cheerful one. Um, I never wanted to be a burden on others because, like, my mom was just, like, up and down and up and down. Like, she was just one minute she's mad, another she's smiling. So, like, because she was so dramatic, I was like, "Okay, well, obviously, like, I'm tiptoeing, and I don't wanna piss her off, so I'm gonna be calm. Even if I'm mad or sad or angry, I'm just gonna, like, pacify myself. I'm just gonna s pass." And how that took place was when I was very young, I learned how to masturbate, and that's actually how I got through a lot of things through masturbation. Not like I know some of you are, like, a little bit perverted out there, and you're thinking like, "Oh, she knew how to masturbate when she was young." No, I literally was lying on the floor, like, face down, and, I just grinded on my knuckles, and I was like, "Oh, this feels really good." And I was, like, really young, I think maybe 6 or something. But anyways, I was like, "This feels good." And I used that instead of being emotionally vulnerable because there was no one I could be emotionally vulnerable with, not my mom and not really my brother and things like that. And I didn't know how I felt. So I realized that I think early on as a kid, I started to have attraction towards men. And even like, I think I was in kindergarten or something. But I started pretty young because then, like, my dad left us, and so, like, um, I would form these, like, attraction towards guys, and it was just very immediate and also a little bit physical. I remember, like, grabbing a guy's ass when I was a kid, and I think we were, like, little kids, and I was like, "Wow, I am perverted." But anyways, the point is that, I would idealize like a crush. I'll be like, "Oh my god, he's like the cutest guy ever," and I would just like instead of like dealing with my emotions, I would just find something. And I think that's why I talked about Ollie London and I talked about BTS, that there are so many people that just go fan crazy over K-pop stars or celebrities because they have no place to talk about their emotions, and they don't feel vulnerable or safe with their parents. So they find an idol, something to kind of like put all of their energy and emotions into, um, and feelings into, right? And to escape feelings of pain or escape feelings of anger or sadness. And when you have strong affection and love towards something, um, your heart can ease, in a way, it eases that pain. So, as for me, like, I dealt with, I think there's a term, avoidant, like, emotional EQ health. I'm the avoidant type, so instead of talking about my emotions, I would just be alone. I'd rather just walk away from a person and be like, "Hey, I need alone time," than deal with my emotions, uh, sulk, pray, or whatever, but then never really, like, confront that person about how I felt towards that person. And so then God had to heal me by showing me, like, it's okay to come out and tell people how you actually feel, and that took a lot of courage on my end, but God would just tell me, "Tell your mom how you feel. Tell your friend how you feel," and all these things. And of course, there were times I'm like, "Why do I have to be the one to tell them how I feel?" I mean, my dad left us, I didn't see him since I was 8 till 18 for 10 years, and it's like, I felt like I was the only one that, like, reached out to him after that, and so, honestly, I just felt like, this is so unfair, like, I'm the daughter, and the dad should be reaching out to the daughter, and that's how I feel about dating too, like, I on these dating apps been on these dating apps recently, Christian Mingle, I think, like, OkCupid, and I'm like, "You know what? If a guy's interested, they need to contact you." And I know I'm very, like, feminist. I mean, that's actually not a feminist move, that's actually very traditional, but I'm just very hardcore about, my traditional values because I feel like I've already been, like, a very in a way, like, testosterone-filled female, like, I'm just so aggressive compared to a lot of females, and I've God has also called me to be very bold and aggressive and to not be afraid, but I feel like in being aggressive and being bold, I sometimes don't feel very feminine, but I do realize that being bold is a feminine feature too. It's just that I want to be chased in a relationship. I want to be pursued, you know what I mean? And so I get really frustrated when people are talking about dating and they're like, "Oh, I messaged him." To me, I'm just like, "Dude, like, why do you have to message him? Like, what is this? Like, a third world country?" No, actually, that's a little bit offensive, but um, no. Okay, the point is that anyway, so I grew up like I had a history of just being used, and I looked back on a lot of my photos in my childhood or teenage years, college years, and like I was smiling next to people, I was having a bunch of fun. But like no one really knew what I was going through, you see? And like people just thought I was this really happy person who had no problems. And I'm like, are you kidding me? I was traumatized as a kid, abandoned, like left not for dead, but um and here's another thing, cause my mom's like, "Don't talk about your personal life, on social media. Um, don't paint a picture like, oh, I treated you so bad, and blah, blah, blah." But I'm like, "You know what? This is how I feel, and I should talk about it. I should be honest, and I should not sideline my emotions just because she feels bad about it." Right? And, like, I even had a breakthrough this morning where I was talking about how, um so at one point, I was living with a friend, and I started to not speak up about certain things that was annoying me or hurting me because I thought, you know what, she's letting me stay with her, so like I should just be grateful. And that's another freaking Christian lie that we live in, like that the church teaches is like, be grateful for stuff. It's like false humility. Someone is already helping you. Be grateful. Don't complain. Well, my friends, that is so false, false, false. And I also came out yesterday to tell my friend, or I messaged her, and let's talk about weddings. So I attended a wedding and I had issues. I was a bridesmaid. I had issues. Look, I had issues with my friend, and I didn't want to speak up because I didn't want to bring more drama or more issues to her plate. But I started to realize, like, again, that if there's an issue, I don't care what day it is, it's your wedding, it's your birthday, whatever, you need to bring it up. I've had a friend bring up an issue with me on my birthday, at my birthday party, okay? I was offended, but now I realize that I don't care what day it is, it's a relationship, it's a friendship, you gotta deal with it. You know, you gotta deal with it because I went into a wedding feeling super awkward and, like, having these, like, mixed emotions and, like, being bitter and angry towards that person. And look, it's like if there's something bothering you, you talk to that person. And so throughout the years, God has taught me how to speak up, and that's just, like, one thing at a time, like, you know, if you've been used your whole life, I am very sorry to hear that no one taught you how to speak up, but here's how you can break that cycle. First of all, believe in Jesus, believe that he died on the cross for your sins and that you are worthy. Like, you're so worthy that he died on the cross for your sins so that you don't have to suffer anymore. Second of all, as you're filled with the Holy Spirit, he's going to start teaching you and telling you when to speak up. And if, like, for example, like today I had a conversation with my friend and I realized that I was not telling her how I felt, my true feelings, and I didn't want to talk about it. And God was like, "Tell her how you feel." And I was like, "Okay, God, that's not cool because you telling me to do that and she's not doing that, and that's not fair." But relationships are not about fairness because if anything, I need to talk about how I feel more than anything. It's for myself, it's more for my heart. So vulnerability is for yourself. So it's like, "Oh, so not fair. Why do I have to open up about how I feel, about my sadness, my anger first?" Well, it's for your health. It's for because I knew that if I didn't call her, I would go on Netflix and find something, um, and then, like, for example, find a show that's a little risque, and then because our emotions have to do with is very attached to our sexuality. What do I mean by that? Is that when you're not expressing yourself, that's why a lot of people have sexual addictions, or they turn to porn, or they turn to masturbation, or they turn to reading erotica, or they turn to eating, or they turn to shopping, or they turn to finding a random guy online to talk to because they are not confronting the very thing that they need to confront, which is maybe a relationship in your life, a friendship, a parent that you actually need to share honestly about how you feel. And growing up, I did not learn how to do that because my mother, she never talked about her emotions. If she was sad, she was yelling. She was sad, she was angry.